setting up boundaries is incredibly important to be able to maintain a life for oneself and sanity, both not only physical boundaries in terms of location that I don't want to necessarily have to go to anymore because I'm so busy that I don't need to be traveling very far, but also just boundaries in terms of my personal time and personal space.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode. Hey everyone. Today we have a special guest with us that I had the pleasure of meeting in person for the first time at the AVMA Vet Conference in Denver this year. We have with us Dr. Jonathan Reiss, as in Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, as he clarified for me, which I was very appreciative of. Dr. Reiss graduated from Cornell University College of Veterinary Medicine in 2008. After working in New York at an animal shelter, he moved to Northern Virginia in 2009. There he worked as a general practitioner until starting his own single doctor mobile practice in March 2015. He volunteers with local animal rescue groups, shelters, and spay neuter organizations. So I'm really happy to have you on the show today. It was so nice to connect with you at the conference. I'm just so glad you came by my House Call Vet Academy booth and gave me a hug. And it was just like, yay, it's our people. You're here.
Yeah,
So
it's great to see you and put a face to the name. And I've tried to be involved with the community, and it's nice to meet people in person.
Yeah, it really is. So, I appreciate that you came by and I'm really happy that you're here. And we had a chance a little bit to talk about how your practice is a little bit unique. Everyone's practice is unique, but I liked hearing about some of the uniquenesses of your practice. And so I'm excited we'll get a chance to delve into that today. So
Sure.
first of all, I'm going to start out by asking, what is your favorite snack to eat in the car? Or
Well,
whatever your vehicle is. Do you have a car? Or are you
yes,
a planner?
I
Okay,
do.
cool.
So typically, my day to day, I'm mostly on the road in my Subaru Forester, and it handles the rural life pretty well. I try to make time for lunch every day, but you know how that goes. That doesn't always happen. So I always keep some granola bars and Cliff bars and bottles of water in my car at all times. So yeah. But in terms of my favorite, chocolate.
Yes. Yes. I think that is kind of like a common one for house call vets. That's like
Yeah.
chocolate, granola, and nuts seem to come up quite a
Yeah.
bit. So I like it. I like it. And what part of Virginia are you in again? Can you remind me?
I'm in the very northern part of Virginia, just about an hour west of DC, Washington,
Is
DC.
that near Richmond? I have no sense of geography.
Uh, yeah, it's a couple of hours north of Richmond.
Okay. I have some family there. So
Oh, nice.
where is that? Okay. Cool. So thank you for that. Can you tell me a little bit
Absolutely.
about how you became a house call vet and what your journey was like?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I worked in a couple of the GP practices in the area for a couple of years, which I loved doing the GP work in the brick and mortar world. A couple of years ago, one of the vets that I worked for, my last employer, had been around for decades and mixed animal practice, and he would do house calls on the very rare occasion. And he got too busy, so he asked me to help mostly for in-home euthanasias. And I started doing that for him and his old clients. And next thing you know, I realized how much I enjoyed offering that service, how valuable of a service it was, and kind of snowballed from there. So I made the decision to take the leap and start my own thing. And I've been very happy that I've done so ever since. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you started out with a really interesting situation that you sort of had like almost a dovetail of your house call practice with a colleague who sort of handed the baton and passed
Yep.
things off to you. And I love that. That's really, really cool. And also, I love hearing about how you started with in-home euthanasia. I feel like a lot of people kind of start with that. And then from there, you start to understand the value of the service and the care being provided in the home. And
Yeah.
I don't know. And how did you end up deciding to go from euthanasia to bringing everything else on board? Or was it just sort of a natural development?
I think I knew from the start that I wanted to offer full service. So when I started, I made the leap. And again, I bought the Boit trailer and I bought the blood machine and I
You
bought
did.
everything up
Oh, you
front. Um,
did.
yeah, I did. So it was pretty intimidating making that giant leap because I knew I wanted to provide the services that I wanted to continue to provide. And I'm glad that I did. I certainly had some bumps along the way and made some mistakes and learned from those
We'll
mistakes.
talk
But
about those
um,
later.
yeah, but I knew that I wanted to continue doing in-home euthanasia, and I do that a lot as well. But I do everything from routine vaccine appointments and puppy visits to sick visits, and I can do x-rays and blood work and everything in people's homes. So it's nice. It's a nice balance of things.
That's awesome. I also really love the ability to do so many things in the home. Like you said, people think they need the big LeBoy, they need the huge investment, the big financial risk and all that stuff. But it's like, no, you can do so
No.
much good in the home, so much good. Do you have
Yes.
a favorite type of care to provide in the home?
I mean, I know it's a little cliche, but honestly, the in-home euthanasias, I find, although they're often the hardest
Yeah.
appointment of the day, they're often the most rewarding. Helping people through the hardest of times, families gathered around, telling stories, feeding their loved one ice cream as they're falling asleep or whatever it is. It's very touching. And to be able to help people in those times is one of my favorite parts of my job.
Yeah, that's very moving. And I hear you on that. I don't do euthanasia myself anymore for personal reasons, but I think that there's so much beauty and so much real life connection that we don't get in day to
Hmm.
day life as we do get through these sort of transition moments where we can support people and really hold them through the reality of life and the end of
Yeah.
life and just really sit in that love for the animal and, just own our very, very human experience of love and loss together.
Yeah.
And so I commend you for doing that work. And I commend everyone who's doing that work. It's very meaningful work.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. Very cool. So you're an interesting guest on the show for a few reasons. First off, you're a dude, where most of my practicing house call vet guests that are on the show have been women. And I think I took a little bit of an inventory. The House Call Vet Academy, every single person in there is female. I don't know why that is, but it just is. So, in any event, I'm just really interested in hearing your perspective from that angle. And also, you mentioned to me a little bit about how you work. I think you have a little bit of a brick and mortar component, which is where
Yep.
you're at now. Is this your office that you use for surgeries? It looks really nice. Like I see like
Oh,
a
thank you. I
vaulted
can take you for
ceiling.
a tour if you want. Yeah.
I want a
So,
tour.
sure, it's
Yeah.
distracting.
Oh
I'll
my
take you
God,
on
this
a
is so
little tour.
cool. Yeah. Can we get a
So,
tour?
my office is basically just a one room location. I've got a little area for equipment behind me, autoclave, centrifuge, my standing ultrasound, but I also have the mobile, which is just a handheld and office kind of stuff, a crate. And then this is my waiting room and my exam room and my treatment room all in one. So pretty much the way I schedule things at the office is it's only one client in the building at a time. I try to make it feel like a living room environment. So you're not really in a waiting room at all. So I try to make it as comfortable as possible. In general, I kind of start my day and end my day at the office. And in between, I'm doing house calls all day. And every day is different. I don't have specific office hours versus house call hours. It really just depends on what the clients need. So it's always up to the client if they want a house call versus an office appointment and if it's worth the value of the house call fee.
Okay, so you're very much hybrid. So people
Yeah.
have option in home or in clinic. That's so cool. And you offer surgeries and x-rays too?
Yep.
And
So my X-ray machine is wireless and portable, so I could take that into anybody's home, or I could do it here at the office. And then my surgical suite, like I said, is just the Boit, which I'd park right outside the office here. So for any surgeries, I just do here. So in the beginning, I used to do surgeries in people's driveways until I had this office location. And having the office location has really improved my quality of life, offers a lot more flexibility for the client, a lot easier for me to squeeze things in. Clients can drop off a urine sample or pick up an ear medication. And I like having that flexibility.
that's fantastic. You're a badass. Can I just say oh my God. Well, this is so cool for those of you listening on Spotify or on whatever audio podcast platform you're listening to. If you're not watching the YouTube version of this, there is a YouTube channel, BTW. We just got the best tour of Dr. Reiss's office and his LaBoit, and it's just so warm and cozy. It definitely feels like a little living room. I love the vaulted ceiling. My own apartment has a vaulted ceiling too, so I'm partial to that. But that is so cool. So you ended up keeping the LaBoit and getting a brick and mortar component. That is so cool. And so you're also driving your Forester around when you do the house
Yep.
calls and bringing the LaBoit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when I first started the business, like I said, I bought all the LaBoit and everything from the get go. And I got a used LaBoit from somebody who used to do house calls. And it took me a very short period of time to realize how much I hated driving that LaBoit everywhere. I live in a fairly mixed area between suburbia and rural. So dirt roads, sketchy driveways played a toll on me and on the LaBoit. So I quickly got the Forester for my day to day, and I relied on the LaBoit just for surgeries. And then basically once I got the office location after about 2 years or so of the practice being around, pretty much I just keep the LaBoit parked here and I do surgeries here at the office and it works out pretty darn well for me.
Fantastic. I love that. That's really great. This conversation, it always interests me when I get to speak to people who have the LaBoit set up. And you're extra interesting because you have the LaBoit and the brick and mortar component. But the LaBoit part really, really interests me because those are expensive. They're damn expensive. They require a huge investment up front. And I love also that you purchased a used one. I think that seems to be the most successful way that people seem to do it. And I've also seen a lot of people who start out with that investment from the beginning, they also hate it because what I've seen, and you tell me if this is consistent with your experience, but I mean, there's literally a Facebook group called LaBoit that it's a love-hate relationship. There's literally a group called that because there's so much you can do. There's so much potential. But I have a colleague, a friend who just bought a used LaBoit and the generator was broken, about $10,000. That has to be fixed. The
Yeah.
battery, a few thousand more dollars. Like it's like a money pit. And it's like when you're just starting out, who has that? It's just like
Right.
it takes, and it puts pressure on people. I've seen it over and over and over again that people who start out thinking they have to go big or go home to do this, they crash and they're the ones that leave mobile practice. They're the ones I see selling,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons people might sell their LaBoit, but I really am hesitant to, encourage someone to make that kind of purchase right off the bat. And
Yeah.
I see you nodding your head. And so I have a sneaking suspicion to lead into my next question. And,
Yeah.
tell me if you faced any of these things, but everyone loves to hear about bloopers. Like, what would you have done differently that you might like to share with your listeners, whether that has to do with the LaBoit or something else? Just would
Yeah.
love to hear your experiences. You have such a successful, robust business. What was hard?
Sure. I mean, so many things were hard. I think in terms of physical things, for me, one of my initial financial blunders was buying a blood machine. I learned again
Blood
very
machine.
quickly that any of my cases that I wanted blood results right away, I was referring to ERs anyway. So for every single case that I actually do blood work, waiting until the next day works perfectly fine for me. I'm also in a very fortunate situation where I have multiple ERs within an hour or two from me. So that may not be the case for everybody, but for
Right.
me, it just wasn't worth that investment for the blood machine. In terms of the Boit itself, again, pros and cons. I love it and I hate it. Yes, the maintenance is incredible. The fact that I now just keep it essentially parked works perfectly for me. Whereas if I had to maintain it on the road all the time, I think it would be a very different story. And I probably would lean more on the hate it than the love it side. But it did offer me a great way to have income right away. You know, when I first started, I spent time at a shelter and I would do their spays and neuters, and I was able to just drive up and do it. So that was guaranteed income right away. And that offset the cost of the maintenance. I like being able to do spays and neuters for myself, for my patients, as well as for, rescue groups. So I would hate to give it up and I love having it, but yes, a huge investment and a huge maintenance issue. In terms of like personal mistakes that I've made that I feel like I would have done slightly differently, I think the main thing was being overly accommodating to my clients beginning.
Yeah.
I think
Amen. Amen.
setting up boundaries is incredibly important to be able to maintain a life for oneself and sanity, both not only physical boundaries in terms of location that I don't want to necessarily have to go to anymore because I'm so busy that I don't need to be traveling very far, but also just boundaries in terms of my personal time and personal space. And I think at this stage, creating a good communication with my clients, setting them up for reasonable expectations is key. I let them know very upfront what my limitations are. And I think that really prevents any kind of resentment on both ends.
Bravo. Let's hear it for those in the back. Let's say it again. Boundaries.
Yeah.
Don't be too over accommodating. But yeah, I mean, I love that because part of the boundary setting is the reasonable expectation setting and communication of that.
Yeah.
I love that you said that. Right on. I couldn't agree more.
And it's challenging. It's always hard to slip down that slope and give in to people who want you to push your boundaries and stay late or travel farther. But I don't think it's worth it for myself. And I don't think it's worth it for them either in the long run. I think everybody here, if they know what to expect.
Exactly right. Well said. Okay, so speaking of boundaries, we're merging into a subject that could end up being a conversation about boundaries as well.
Okay.
I know you're really passionate about working with rescue groups and
Yep.
shelter and spay and neuter. You said that you love being able to do the spay and neuter and you work with spay and neuter organizations.
Yep.
That's cool. And can you tell me a little bit about that and how you do that with what you do in house calls? Is that a part of your business?
Yeah, it is. So, like I mentioned a little bit, when I first got started, before I was very, very busy, I was able to work at a local shelter and provide spaying and neutering and also do intake and whatnot. So, it was a great way for me to have, like I said, some consistent income in the very beginning. And I continue to have strong relationships with many local rescue groups that I treat them a lot like any other client. I do offer a quote unquote multiple pet discount. And it helps me to be more efficient on a day to day basis with clients. So I'd much rather come out to you at one time and see 5 pets than to be coming over and over and over again. So it an incentive to be efficient in that sense, but it also helps me to legitimize to myself the discounts that I give to rescue groups and make it feel like it's a fair discount that I give to all my clients. Being a house call vet, I'm sure everybody has discussed before about the work-life balance and flexibility in schedule, but it is a lot easier for me to make time for volunteer work because my overhead is so low, my schedule is so flexible that I'm able to do that for various groups.
That's fantastic. I love that you're maintaining what you're passionate about, including on a volunteer basis, because simply you want to do it. The way you set your businesses up is such that you can do it in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of lifestyle, work-life balance. That's incredible. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
That's amazing. You don't need me to be proud of you, but I
That's fair.
am. So I know you said that you have a new foster at home.
Oh,
Just
I
before
do.
we
Yeah.
got on the call, you mentioned you have a new foster.
Yep. Yep. A human foster
Oh
child.
my gosh, foster. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay. Well, we
Yes.
can go into that or not. It's up to you.
Sure. Sure. So yes, besides my two biological children, we're also a foster family. So we occasionally
Good.
kids from various situations come and live with us until they could be reunited with their families.
That's unbelievable. Oh, you have such a big heart. I love all the thank you. Oh my God. I literally thought your foster was like a puppy or a kitten.
Oh, we do that too, but
I have no doubt.
human.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay.
And again, being the house call vet allows me to deal with things that come up in my personal life. And I could make my schedule around what's needed. If I need to reschedule things, I often can. And most of my clients understand. I just picked up this one kid on Thursday, across the border unaccompanied and is in a transition period in his life. And I was able to call my clients on Wednesday night and say, hey, can I take tomorrow off? I need to do something. And everybody understands. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. What a beautiful synergy between what you do through your work and what you do outside of work because you want to.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Okay. Well, that was a different direction than I was planning on. I'm so moved by that. Oh my God. I still want to ask the question I was going to ask, kind of getting
Sure.
back to human rescue organizations, though, because I think it's still kind of interesting and I think it's relevant to all vets, whether they're working with rescues or not. And it kind of loops back into the boundary discussion as well. So classically, there's been this sort of friction between the rescuers and vets, potentially unrealistic expectations that rescuers can have for vets at times. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's
Hmm.
of entitlement to lowered prices or unrealistic expectations of what is possible for a vet to do and have it still be lucrative to them from a professional perspective. Sometimes rescuers tend to go head to head from a medical perspective
Yep.
and kind of go against what the vet says because they've seen a million of this case and they now are a vet, apparently, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of that going on. And I do want to say, I also am incredibly grateful that there are people doing this work. Like, we need
Oh,
this work. And at the same time, there's like a different paradigm between the two cohorts of professionals. Like rescuers tend to play out a role that they're the hero and want to rise above the vet as being the hero, et cetera. And then the vet wants to be the hero. And then there's this whole rescuer hero, drama triangle thing that plays out
yeah.
whenever I hear about people engaging with these rescue organizations. And so I know, of course, not all rescuers, of course, not every individual who gravitates towards this work displays these types of behaviors, either from the vet side or the rescuer side. But I would just love to hear your experience since you're really deep in this work, it sounds like. Do you have any tips for our listeners on how to work with rescue organizations? Because it is such important work. It needs to be done. And there are inherent challenges in the mentalities between the providers who are trying to accommodate both sides of this endeavor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the main thing is to approach it as not us versus you, that we're all part of the same team. We're all in it for the same reason, trying to, better the welfare of these animals and doing the best that we can in the situation that we're in. And that I think is a big part of why I have been successful working with shelters because I feel like I approach it in a very open-minded way. And I feel like I'm not very judgmental. I try not to be. And I recognize that what's right for one rescue group is not what's right for just like pets and being a pet owner. There's
Yeah.
not just one way to do it. So whether it's a client or a rescue group, I treat everyone as an individual. They're all different and I, explain to them why I do things, but ultimately it's their decision. And I just try my best to help them help the animals. Like you said, I am very involved. I'm on the board of a couple of nonprofits and I think that also helps give me a little bit of legitimacy when a new rescue group approaches me or is looking for help. I think that helps as well, showing that I have an interest and have a passion for it. But ultimately, I like I said, I treat them a lot like any other client. I don't give them preferential treatment. I don't bend over backwards for them any more than any of my other clients. And I set those boundaries up from the beginning, and I think that helps. I do what I can, but I don't give discounts beyond what I give anybody else. I just tell them, here's what my fees are. Here's what my availability is. Here's what I can do for you. And if that works for you, great. I'm more than happy to help you. If that doesn't, fortunately, around here, you have other options, other people that you can go see. And that's true for any
That's
client.
it right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. That's a wonderful, compassionate boundary setting and self care while doing your best to help animals and everyone who brings them to you. It's great. That's really,
Thank
really
you.
great. And so you had said that your way of hacking the question of, am I treating the rescue differently from the client, is your guideline is like 5 animals or more in one house call, and there's the discount. It's not
Yep.
that
And then
that you have 5 animals to be seen. Very
yes. And so I do a different discount for 2 to 5 animals, 5 to 10 animals, and then 10 plus.
great.
So it helps me tremendously be more efficient, but it also, for the people who have more and more animals, it gives them a little benefit financially as well.
Wonderful. I
But
love
then
it.
the cost for the vaccines, the cost for other services are all the same for everybody. I personally don't give specific discounts for elderly or military or rescue groups. I treat everybody equally.
Yeah, your cause is the animals, and that's
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
That's plenty. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Personally, off the record, I think my fees are pretty competitive already on their own. But yeah, I do what I can.
Fantastic. I love that. I love these little pearls here. This is wonderful. Anything else that you'd like people to know about you or your practice?
Gosh, I think we've covered a lot. I think that just to reiterate a lot of the things that we've already said, that, I'm so glad that I made the leap to start my own practice. I think it's been financially a great investment in myself. I make significantly more money now than I ever would have for working for anybody else. And my quality of life is much greater. The flexibility around my family and my own personal needs is invaluable. So I think it's a great option for many different people and many different lifestyles.
Mm, I relate to so much of that. Thank you for sharing that. And I think those are the words that folks who are considering the leap need to hear because
Yeah.
it's true. It's true. When you do it right and you approach things with skilled boundary setting, skilled communication and setting of expectations, the right support network, and the
Mm.
right mentality mindset. And hey, a little bit of entrepreneurial knowledge, education, or intuitive sense. The sky's the limit. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. And I agree that the glass ceiling that can exist when you're an employee, that's a whole different game, right? You're,
Yeah.
you're literally looking at the sky, not the ceiling,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. I'm limited by whatever I want the business to be. There's a lot of room for growth. I
Mhm.
personally like to keep it small and intimate. I've had people ask me if I wanted to franchise or if I wanted to grow the business or I should hire and hire and hire and expand. And I say, no, I like the way things are. I like the quality of the service that I provide. I like the intimate relationships that I have with my clients. I know my clients. I know my patients well. I bump into my clients at the local grocery store and say,
Yeah.
hey, Fluffy doing? And or at my kid baseball game. Hey, and I like having that relationship. I like that business, but also that lifestyle that I have.
Mhm. I agree with so much of that. I relate to a lot of it also. I've had many people also say, "Hey, you're going to franchise? Are you going to hire more people? Are you going to expand?" And for exactly what you said, to me, I have concerns about this actually inevitable plan of scaling. Like you get to a
Mm.
successful point where you're happy and now you have to scale, you have to get bigger, you have to have more, you have to suddenly turn things impersonal and it's you not doing the work and you farm out everything to be done
Yep.
and like so okay, that's a whole different business model than the house
Right.
call practice model and why people tend to go into it. So
Hmm.
I do get concerned when people feel, okay, now I need to scale. Now I need to have more vets. Now I need more, more. And I think that itself is one of the most common reasons that people lose the joy of house call practice and permanently.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
or where the business just loses that special thing that it had. Hey, you might be making a lot of money. You might have
Yeah.
a quote unquote successful business, but that special thing that makes your practice
Mm.
unique and wonderful and treasured by your clients and the loving your work and having your own, it's just this beautiful thing that I think can so easily become disfigured out of this faulty thinking that you have to scale and you have to have more, right?
Right.
I love that you said that.
Yeah. No, it's hard to be happy with what you have at times, but it's very important. And I think it does set us apart too. Not growing and growing and growing. I think being small, being intimate is part of my niche. It's I think one of the main things that people value in the service that I provide is that I'm not just biggering and biggering and biggering.
Right.
Uh,
Biggering and biggering.
that,
I like that. Yeah, yeah, I very much agree that it does also set us apart from the big, national franchises and,
yeah.
of course, the corporate. I had to say the word. And you know how I am about these things, but it really does set us apart that we know all of our patients. We care to know
Yes.
them. We want to know them. And
Yeah.
it's not just this transactional thing. That's what I think makes house call practice so beautiful. And what I love seeing people, the self-actualization of who they are as a doctor rather than just a money-making machine, bigger, bigger, bigger. It's a different thing, like you said. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely.
All right. So since we are in the House Call Vet Cafe, can you tell me
Yeah.
what's your favorite tea or coffee or other beverage to drink?
Mm. So there's a great little local bagel shop around here, and they have a cold brew that is really good. So their cold brew iced coffee with cream and sugar, really good. But luckily, I don't need that to run my day, so that's good. But honestly, I mostly just drink water all day, every day.
All right, that's awesome. So you're not a coffee addict, but you
No,
appreciate one
e-
particular coffee.
exactly.
Amazing. All right, Dr. Reiss, thank you so much for being with the podcast and for sharing your insights and your experiences. And I just love your warm and caring touch for your patients and your clients. And I think we need more of that front and center in kind of the entrepreneurship of veterinary practice. So thank you for displaying that. And thank you for living that. And thank you for sharing it with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as the House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for House Call Vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.
If you're looking for help with ultrasound scanning, check out First Opinion Veterinary Ultrasound for independent machine reviews and online and in-person teaching options. FOVU, simplifying ultrasound.